Hello and welcome. Week number 14, Programming Fundamentals with Python. And in this lecture, we will discuss functions in more detail. In week number 13, we have defined function, what is the role of function, how we can actually use function inside our program, what are the advantages of function, and so on. These concepts we have already covered in week number 13. In week number 14, we will continue to study about functions, and in this lecture, I will cover the topics like how we can pass arguments to a function, how we can return values from a function, and finally some random number generations built-in functions. Here is a road map for this presentation. I will start with a discussion on passing arguments to a function. How we can pass a single argument and more than one arguments to a function. Then we will see the effect of changing parameters in a function, and then we will see how we can return values from a function, which is important, especially if you are doing some calculations. In some scenarios, we need to return values from a function. After that, we will study some library functions and their use, and finally some random number generations. So the objective for this lecture is that at the end of this week you will be able to learn about how you can pass arguments to a function, how you can return values from a function, and some basic concepts about random number generation and standard libraries which are available in the Python. First, let us see how we can pass arguments to a function. Before going into the details of this topic, let us discuss some terminologies associated with passing data into the functions. Unfortunately, many developers uses the terms argument and parameter interchangeably, but it is important to note that there is a difference between the two. Parameter is actually a variable and that is defined as part of the function header and is used to make data available within the function itself. You can say that a parameter is a variable that actually receives an argument that is passed into the function. While on the other hand, an argument is any piece of data that is passed to the function when the function is called. The argument is actually the value or the data that is passed to the function when that function is called. And the data that we provide to the function is actually held within the parameter. So whatever you pass to the function, that is your argument. And whatever it is declared inside the function header is the parameter. So those are actually the variables which will hold the data that is passed to the function when it is called. Okay, so there is a basic difference between a parameter and an argument. How we can actually pass arguments to a function. We saw some programs about passing arguments to a function in our previous week. Here we will elaborate the concept in more details. Sometimes it is useful not only to call a function but also to send one or more pieces of data to the function. Pieces of data that are sent to the function, as I just mentioned, are known as arguments. The function can use its argument in calculations or in other operations, use some useful operations. If you want a function to receive arguments when it is called, then you have to equip the function with one or more parameters in the declaration or in the function definition. You can say that a parameter variable, which is simply known as a parameter, is a special variable that is assigned the value of an argument when a function is called. Let us see an example. Here is, in this example, a function has been defined. The function name here is my function. You're quite familiar with this line. This is actually function definition, which has 4 components. The definition, the def keyword, which stands for definition, function name, which in this case is my underscore function, parenthesis, and optional parameter, followed by a colon. This is actually the parameter. Okay. The second line is actually the statement which contribute to the body of this function, and this line will be executed once this function is called. Now, how to call a function? Just write the name of the function followed by parenthesis, and that's it. But in this case, this function required an argument to be provided. Whenever you want to call this function, you have to provide it with an argument. In this case, the argument is Ali. The value will be assigned to this parameter or this variable, which is represented by f name. In the second call, remember, you can call a function as many times as you want from any location that you want. So I'm calling the function for the second time. Every time I need to call the function, I have to provide an argument. Here in this case, the argument is Bilal. It will be assigned to the parameter f name. And similarly, I'm calling the function for the third time, and this time I'm providing the argument Kamal. When this program is run, you will see that it will display these 3 arguments, which are Ali, Bilal, and Kamal on the screen. Okay. This is an example of how we can actually pass an argument to a function. Let us see another example. In this example, we also have a function. Name of the function is show underscore double. And this function has a parameter, a variable with the name number, which means every time you want to call this function, you have to provide or pass an argument. So here we are calling this function. To call a function, you just need to write the name of the function followed by parentheses without the colon. Is this function required an argument to be provided? So the argument here is value. In this case, value is actually a variable. You can also pass the constant like this. Instead of passing value, you can pass 5, which is a constant. But here I am assigning the constant to a variable, and the name of the variable is value. And then instead of passing the constant, I am passing the value, the variable to the function. Here in this case, the argument is value. Once you call this function, the value will be assigned to this parameter, which is number, and the value is 5. Next is the body of the function. What's going on here? We are actually declaring another variable with the name result, and here is the calculation. Multiply whatever you received in the parameter with 2. In this case, we received 5. So multiply 5 with 2. After multiplication, the result, which is equal to 10, will be assigned to the variable, which is result. And then in the next statement, we are actually printing the result, the value stored in this variable result. So this will display 10 on the screen. The output is going to be 10 here. On the technical point, what's going on here? We have a value 5. And the parameter is actually referring, the argument is referring to this value, as well as the parameter actually refer to this value. Okay. Notice this, that this value actually appears inside the parentheses. This means that the value is being passed as an argument to the show double function. When this statement execute, the show double function will be called. It's like calling the function, and the number parameter will be assigned to the same value as the value variable. Both will refer to the same thing. Okay. In this example, we passed a single parameter, a single argument to this function. Sometime we required more than one argument to be provided to the function. That is possible. And it is useful to write a function that can actually accept multiple arguments. And here is an example. In this example, we have a function with the name showSum. And as you can see, this function has two parameters, num1 and num2. When you are using more than one parameter, you have to separate them with the help of a comma. And as usual, it will be terminated by colon. This is the body. This will be executed every time we call this function. And here inside the main function, we are actually calling the function. Whenever you want to call the function, you have to write the name of the function followed by parentheses and arguments. In this case, this function required us to provide two arguments. 12, the value of 12 will be assigned to the parameter num1, and 45 will be assigned to the parameter num2. Okay. This is how we can actually pass multiple arguments to a function. And technically speaking, now we have two memory locations. The first one is referred by num1 and the second one is referred by num2. And uh, on the calculation side, once this function is called, it will actually add these two values, 12, which is stored in num1, and 45, which is stored in num2. These two values will be added and the sum will be assigned to a variable result. And then we are printing the result with the help of print built-in function. Now let us see another possibility of how we can actually pass values to a function. In this case, instead of providing constant value, we are actually passing variables, and the values of these variables are already declared here. Assignment operator, with the help of assignment operator, we are assigning the value to the value 1 variable, and we are assigning 3 to the value 2 variable, and then we are providing these values as an argument to this function to call the function showSum. Okay, so instead of providing constant, you can also provide variable to a function, and they are passed as an argument to the function that we want to call. Actually, the concept is same. Once you run this program, here we are actually making the changes. Instead of providing the numbers, we are providing the variables. The rest of the concept is same. When you run this program, the values stored in the variables will be assigned to the parameters of the function show sum, and then calculation will be performed, value will be assigned to the result variable, and then we are actually printing the result. Don't worry, we will see the programs of this week in the practical session. Okay, here we are only discussing the theoretical concept. This is how we can actually pass multiple arguments to a function. Next, let us see what will happen if we make a change to the value of a parameter. When an argument is passed to a function in the Python, the function parameter variables will actually refer to the argument's value, and we saw it in this example. You see here we have parameters num1 and num2, and they actually refers to the values of the argument. So this is the case of the Python. When an argument, like in this case, we are passing two arguments, or let us see a simple example. Here in this case, we are actually passing a single argument. So when an argument is passed to a function, the function parameter, which actually in this case is denoted by number, it will refer to the argument value. You see, this value is actually the argument value. But once we pass this value to the function, actually the function parameter will also refer to this value. However, any changes that are made to this value by the parameter, that will not affect the argument. This is something very technical. We have a value, both the parameter and the argument, they actually refer to the same value, but any changes that are made to the parameter value, okay, this parameter value, this parameter variable actually, that will not affect the argument. To demonstrate this concept, let us see an example. Here is an example. In this program, we have two functions, main and change me. By the way, I talked about main function in the previous lecture, that it is not actually the function that we use in C or C++. You can give it any name. But as to make the thing familiar for the programmers who are actually switching from C or C++ to Python, I give it the name main. You can give it any user-defined name as long as it follows the rules and regulation of naming variables. So here we have two functions. Initially, we are calling the main function. The control will transfer from this location to here. And then here we have a variable value like this. This is value. And the actual value is 99. After that, we have a print method which will display the value is, and it will display 99. Okay, the output here is going to be 99. After that, we have a call. Remember, you can call a function within the body of another function. So we have a call for another function, and the control will transfer here. Okay, after calling this function, whenever you want to call a function, you have to provide it an argument. So the value has been passed to this function as an argument, and that value is 99. Now it will display the statement, I'm changing the value. Here, the actual value of the argument was 99, but now we have changed it. The value of argument is 0 now. Sorry for my writing. A represents the argument. Now it will display the value of the, now the value is arg, so it will display 0, not 99. Now we have changed the value of the argument inside the function change me. Okay, let me repeat the concept. When an argument is passed to a function, here we are passing this argument to this function. Okay, when an argument is passed to a function, the function parameter variable, which is arg, it will actually refer to this value. What I mean to say is that we have a value 99, and both the argument, which is represented by value, and the parameter, which is represented by a, they will actually refer to this value 99. However, any changes that are made to the parameter variable here is represented by arg, and we are making changes to this. Previously the value was 99, now the value is 0. So anytime you make changes to the parameter variable, it will actually do not affect the argument. Okay, that is going to be like this: 99 still r value represented by v here will refer to 99, but the argument represented by a here, it will now refer to the new value, that is 0. So you see, it has no effect on the argument. So if you run this program, the output is going to be like this. First, it will display this statement. Let me write numbering. The value is, what is the value of value? That is 99. So it will display 99 on the screen. Actually, it will display the whole statement. Then I am calling the function change me. So the control will transfer here and it will display this statement. I'm changing the value. And then it will assign the new value to this argument. Now it will display this statement. Now the value is arg. What is the current value of arg? The current value of arg is, these are actually the execution sequence. The value of arg now is 0. So it will display 0. Okay, after execution of this statement, control will transfer to the location from where we actually call this function. Control will transfer here. Now we still have a statement. It will be displayed. The sequence here is 4. The logic is here. Back in main, the value is. Now it will display the current value of value. We have changed the value, but that change has no effect on this value. The value of value is still 99. So it will display 99. What I mean to say is that any changes that are made here will no effect on the changes here. Or in other words, changes made to the parameter will actually have no effect on the argument. We will see this program in the practical session as well. Okay. Let us move to another topic, that is returning values from a function. We have learned about functions that do not return any value, and those functions are known as void functions. Void functions. A void function is actually a group of statements that exist within a program for the purpose of performing a specific task. When we need the function to perform its task, we actually call the function, and this causes the statement inside the body of the function to be executed. Once the function is the execution of the function is finished, control of the program return to the statement appearing immediately after the function call. That is about the void function, functions that do not return a value. On the other side, a value returning function is a special type of function which has a return statement, and we will see it here. That is actually the syntax. Now inside the body of the function we have a return statement, and this return statement actually return a value back to the part of the program that called it. Now the control will return as usual, as usually it happens, but it will also return a value. In addition to transferring the control, it will also return a value, and we write a value returning function in the same way that we write a void function, with one change, and the change is the now we are using the return statement here. So here is the general format. First you have to define the function, same thing, then you have to write the body of the function. The task that we want this function to perform for us is mentioned in the statements, and finally you have to write the return followed by an expression. It could be anything. Okay. The value of the expression that actually follows the keyword return will be sent back to the part of the program that actually call the function. This value will be returned to the portion from where we actually make a call to the function. Let us see a simple example. In this example, we have a function with the name sum. We have two parameters, num1 and num2. Inside the body, we are adding the two numbers, the two parameters, and then we are assigning the result to the variable result. And finally, we are actually returning the value of result to the portion from where we actually call this function. And here is a graphical representation. You see, name of the function is here, parameters are here, and these are actually the body and the return statement. This function will actually return the value stored inside the variable result to the location from where we actually call this function. Okay, so the purpose of this function in this program is to accept two values as an argument and then return their sum. This is how we can actually return values from a function, and we will see the practical demonstration in the practical session. Okay. Another example, a full-fledged example of how actually things happen. In this example, we are actually changing or swapping uh, the values. So the purpose here is to two things. The first thing is that you can also return multiple values from a function. This is important to remember. We can pass multiple arguments to a function, as well as we can return multiple values from a function as well. That is possible. For example, in this function, the name of the function is swap. We have two parameters a and b here, and then we are calling this function. Here we are actually calling this function, you see. And after calling the function, we are actually assigning the values to two variables x and y. So in this program, we have four variables: variable a, variable b, variable x, and variable y. Let us see what's happening here. First, we define the function. This is actually the body of the function. It will be executed once you call this function. And then we have a variable a. The value of this variable is 2. Then we have another variable b, and the value of this variable is 3. That's it. After that, we are calling the function. So a call is make. Whenever you want to call a function, you have to provide two arguments. Remember, it expects us to provide two values as an argument. So here I am providing a and b as an argument to this function. You can use different variable name as well, doesn't matter. The values that we are passing is, what is the value of a? 2. What is the value of b? 3. So 2 will be assigned to a and 3 will be assigned to b here. And then we are returning something. Return b and a. What is the value of b? 3. What is the value of a? 2. Now the values are returned in a reverse order. That is called the swapping. We have swapped the two values that were provided to this function swap. Now this will return to where? To the location from where we actually call this function. And these values will be assigned to x and y. The value of that is 3. That will be assigned to x. The x will contain 3. And the value 2 will be assigned to y. So y will contain 2 now. In the next statement, we are actually printing the value of x and y. So this will display 3 and 2 on the screen. So you see, we provided 2 and 3 to the function, and it returned 3 and 2 to the user. Okay, so we have swapped the values. So two things which you can say a lesson from this example. The first important thing is that you can actually return multiple values from a function as well. And the second thing is that you can change or swap or reverse the values that you can actually provide to a function with the help of this user defined function. You can give it any name. Now let's turn our attention to the last topic, that is about library functions. And also sometime we required to use some library functions, especially when we are returning values from a function. So Python, like other programming languages, come with a standard library of functions. Standard library of functions mean functions that are already written for you. These functions, known as library functions, it actually make the programmer's job easier because they perform many of the tasks that programmer commonly need to perform. Okay, so Python library function actually contains many built-in functions. Some of these functions, some of these library function, built-in function, we have used already in our programming in this course, like the print, input, range, random, etc. But Python has other library function as well, and it depends on the need of the programmers the programmer, if needs some built-in functions, he or she need to import some standard libraries. So if you want to use one of the built-in function in a program, you simply call the function without defining the function, because the definition part has already been implemented by default in the Python language. So many of the function in these standard libraries inside the Python, they are stored in files, and those files are actually known as modules. Okay. So functions, built-in functions, they are actually stored together in a module in Python language. And just you need to work with the modules. In order to call a function that is stored in a module, you have to write a statement, and this statement is referred as import and then followed by name of the module. That is the syntax. If you want um, if you want to work with the module, you have to import that module into your program with the help of import keyword. An import statement tells the interpreter the name of the module that contains the function. So here we are actually importing a library, a module with the name math. And inside this math module, we have different functions available. Yeah. In a similar way, if you want to import another library, another module, then you have to write the import keyword followed by the name of the module. Yeah. Actually, the math module here, it contains several mathematical functions that work with integers, floating point number, etc. If you want to use any of the math module function in a program, you should write this import math statement. And this statement will cause the interpreter to load the contents of the math module into the memory and make all the functions in the math module available to your program. Because you do not see the internal working of library functions, many programmers, they actually think of this statement as a black box. Here we have a black box. Okay? The term black box is used to describe any mechanism that accepts input, perform some operations that cannot be seen, happen internally using the input, and then it will produce the output. So this is a black box, the concept of a black box, which resembles the concept of the standard libraries or modules. We will first see how value returning function works by looking into the standard libraries functions, and then for that we will see the random number generators. So generating random numbers. Random numbers are useful for lots of different programming tasks. The following are just a few examples. You can use random number in games. For example, computer games that let the player roll the dice using random numbers to represent the values of the dice. On the bake scene, we are actually using the random numbers. Similarly, programmers or programs that show cards, playing cards, being drawn from a shuffled deck of cards, they actually use the random number. So it is useful in games. And they are also useful in simulation programs. If you know about simulators like Omnet++, Sumo, NS2, Cownet, etc., all these simulator program actually uses random numbers to represent nodes, persons, animal, insects, sensors, vehicles, etc. Okay. On the other hand, if we talk about mathematical concepts, then for example, formulas can be constructed in which a random number is used to determine various actions and events that take place in the program. So random numbers are useful in statistical programs and mathematical programs for analysis purposes. They are also useful for computer security to encrypt sensitive data. Many algorithms, they actually generate a random keyword or password, etc. So they are also useful in computer security. And Python, on the plus side, it provides several library functions to work with random numbers. And one of the random number example we have already seen in this course. Let us revise the concept. To import the random module, you have to write the statement import random. After that, let us see one thing, a function, a built-in function, which is actually defined inside this library or this module. Well, actually the statement causes this statement actually causes the interpreter to load the contents of the random module into the memory, and this will make all of the functions in this module available to your program. The first important function in this module is the rand integer function. Okay, this rand integer function is the random module, is inside the random module. Here in the statement, the dot actually is a proper way of writing this thing. On the left hand side of this dot, what we have name of the module. What is the name of the module? Random. So on the left side we have name of the module, which in this case is random, and on the right side of this dot is actually name of the function, built-in function, which is defined inside this module. Okay. And then inside the parentheses we have the arguments, starting value and the final value. So you have to notice these two arguments that appear inside the parentheses 1 and 100. These arguments tell the function to give an integer random number within this range between 1 and 100. And remember, both 1 and 100 are included in the range. When you run this program, it will generate a random number in this range. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3, up to 100. The possibility of any number is the same. And then that number randomly generated will be assigned to this variable number. Okay. So this is actually, we are calling a method, a built-in method, and the name of the built-in method is random integer. And we are telling explicitly that this is actually inside the module random, and that module has already been imported into the program. So it will generate the number, random number between 1 and 100, and that will be assigned to this variable number. This is how actually a built-in function or libraries or modules work inside the Python. You see another example here. We have another example. Okay, don't worry about the code. We will practice this example in the practical session. What I want to explain here with the help of this program is that you can actually use loops inside your programs as well. Oops. Okay. You can actually iterate the things as well in your program. So following, actually this program shows a complete program that uses the Randint module function, which is defined inside the module random. The random number here is generated between 1 and 10, and that is assigned to the variable number. Okay, once you run this program, it will actually generate a random number. It could be 1, 2, 3, up to 10, anything. And then with the help of this print statement, we are actually displaying that randomly generated number. But first, the program, if you want to see the execution of this program, first the main function will be executed. Okay, why? Because we are calling the main function, so the control will transfer here. You see, import random library or module is there because we are calling a function which is actually defined in this module. And then this is the comments. This will be ignored. Random number will be generated, and that will be assigned to this variable number. After that, comments ignored. Print the number is number. So it could be anything. For example, let us 6. It will be displayed. The random number generator is 6 in this case, and that's it. Okay. You can also use a loops which has a strong relation with this random number generation. We want to generate several random numbers without any stop. For that, you have to use a loop, and we will see the program which will use iteration in the practical session. So this was about today's lecture. In today's lecture, we learned about functions, user-defined function, how we can actually pass single argument or multiple arguments to a function, how we actually return values from a function, single value, multiple values, and how we can use library functions inside library modules inside our program. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned for the practical session of this week. Goodbye.